Good news. I'm streaming to the correct channel this time. Last office hours, I accidentally streamed to the remix channel. And on that note, let's go back to space for right now. This is you're more than welcome to ask me remix questions during office hours, of course. But that's not all people need to ask. So let me just grab this link here and grab the office hours Zoom link here. And there we go. We're ready for office hours to begin. So let me share my screen. So if you're unfamiliar with office hours, you're in for a treat. Maybe, I don't know. Of course, right now, I need to acknowledge that the world is at war, and this is not a good situation. And my heart goes out to those who are suffering. Innocent lives are being lost, and it's just terrible. So yeah, we're going to make the most of what we can and hope that things can de-escalate soon. So office hours is my opportunity, or your opportunity, or our opportunity to converse and to for me to answer questions and things. And you know, I should probably close that. And office hours takes place every week on Friday. I answer questions that pop up in the Discord chat here. You're more than welcome to join this. And you're also more than welcome to join the Zoom meeting. Let me mark that as red. So yeah, feel free to join us here, and I will do my best to answer any questions that show up. So I give priority to people who are actually in the Zoom meeting. There's nobody here yet, so that actually is not a first, but that's pretty unusual. But that's okay. I can go through these, and yeah, feel free to just stick your questions in Discord as needed, whatever. Okay, great. So I think right here, this is the oldest unanswered question. So Satish is asking whether I've made a video or blog about VS Code shortcuts yet. Answering this now. So I have not, but I do have my uses page, and that could be useful. VS Code. I have a VS Code page specifically that lists out all of my extensions and things and my settings. I haven't updated this in a little while, but yeah, I should probably do that before too long. It's telling me the host has another meeting in progress. Oh, that might explain why nobody's here. Oh, you know what? I am totally in the wrong room. Huh. Oh yeah, this is my meeting at 4:30. Okay, well, since I'm already streaming this, it would be silly to try and do something else. So we're gonna just share the link here. Sorry about that. Go to that link today. And I'm pretty sure it'll still let me do my regular meeting at 4:30, but we'll see. That was my bad. Okay, great. So that hopefully answers that question. Good luck. Welcome. Sorry about that. Yeah, that was my bad. There will one of these days be something, a Zoom meeting where I don't make a single mistake. Okay, we're good there, good here. Anybody who just joined, do you have any questions for me before I get back to Jens's question here?
Yeah, actually, I have a quick one.
Yeah, sure.
Something came across my desk to review, and I have a gut feeling it's a bad thing.
Okay.
Passing a hook as a component prop would be like it'd be better to call the hook in the parent and pass the data down.
Yeah, so yeah, like it's hard to talk about things in a general sense. I wouldn't make like an ESLint rule against that, but it is pretty unusual.
Okay,
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just something that caught my eye. I was like, I wonder if this has the potential to be a bad thing, because you could potentially call it an if statement because it's just a prop or whatever. It wouldn't quite know.
Yeah. As long as the prop has the proper name, it's like a use prefixed thing, then
Okay. Makes
ESLint
it
should
super
catch you.
clear.
But yeah, like I don't on principle have anything wrong with it. But
Okay.
I'd be really interested to know what the use case is, and I'd probably explore something else first. Um,
Yeah, it's basically to get, like, it's the same UI for two places, but the data it uses to display the UI is different.
hmm,
So basically the parent is importing the two hooks and just immediately passing it to the component, to the two different, to the two UI component, or the single UI component in the two spots.
mhm.
So I thought, oh, if we're just like importing this hook just to pass it along, it might make sense to just get the data out, pass the data along.
Yeah, I can see why you might not be able to reasonably do that or easily do that, because maybe you conditionally render one of those children, and so you don't want to call the hook to get its data if that child isn't rendered anyway.
Mhm.
Um, but you could totally make an interim component, like just a really small one that does the calling of the hook, and render that one conditionally or something. Um, yeah.
Cool.
I don't know. I like
Yeah.
I've gotten too tired to care too much about stuff like that. And the other thing
Yeah.
is, like, you don't have these problems when you're using Remix.
Yeah, for sure.
But I know not everybody can use Remix yet. But
Yeah,
yeah,
this one's way too far along to bounce.
yeah, I understand
Um,
that.
that all makes sense. Yeah, it was something that caught my eye, and I was like, I'm cool with it. I just feel like I shouldn't be cool with it.
Yeah, totally.
Something
I
weird about it.
actually, I have, I can't remember when I did this. Um, yeah, I think it was when I was experimenting with control props, the pattern, and I called a hook as the default value for a prop.
Mhm.
So that, just so people understand what I'm talking about, it's like, here's my function foo, is my component, and takes the prop thing, and I said use state, and I'd have like default or something.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I did that once and it worked, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. Um, I think I removed it, but anyway,
Yeah.
it's amazing stuff you can do.
Yep. Yeah. I'll definitely be, yeah, I'll look at it a little closer, knowing that it's fine.
Yeah, it's probably fine.
Yeah.
I might look at doing things differently, but I can understand why somebody might want to do things that way. If you have TypeScript in place, then I'm a lot less concerned, because then you have to, and you're typing it properly.
Yep.
Then you have to at least pass a hook that follows a contract. But
Yep.
yeah,
Cool.
cool. Anyone else in the Zoom have a question for me?
Yeah, I was gonna ask something. Again, just a little bit of a conversation thing, I guess. I asked a couple weeks ago about CSS and component libraries and stuff.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering about a single library that's versioned together, or you mentioned having one at PayPal that kind of wrapped up all the individually versioned components. Adobe does that too. They have individual versioned components, and they have one package that just re-exports those.
Mhm.
I just didn't know what you might have to share about that, because we're currently individually versioning everything, and that's making, well, it hasn't yet, but I'm expecting it to make that somewhat difficult to um, get rid of some dependencies that are shared across all those individual versions.
Yeah. Well, so this is a very clear use case, or use case for monorepos. So are you using a monorepo tool right
No,
now? Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
and well, you mean for the, yeah, all those individual components are in a monorepo, but
Mm.
versioned independently.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're saying monorepo, at my last job, we had a monorepo with all the components and the apps in it.
Mm.
And that was really nice. But that's
Yeah.
never going to happen at this company.
Yeah, no, and I think that's actually okay for the most part. Yeah, that's like a separate discussion with monorepos have their merits and things. But for the package and collection of packages, that definitely I recommend a monorepo and a tool for managing deploying those or publishing those versions. So like you should not be CD into this package and deploy publish it by itself. So there should be automation for keeping everything on the latest version of the other packages. And because otherwise you could end up in a situation where you have two versions of your accordion component or your like, thing that computes where a window a popover thing should go or whatever. One of those lower level things, you can have two versions of that in an app at a time. So you want everything on the latest version, and that one package that puts it all together should be on the latest version of all of them. Yeah, that otherwise, or like if you're doing that, then I think that's fine. That's what we did at PayPal. And granted, I was only on that project for like the last 3 or 4 months of the time that I was there at PayPal. But that's how I architected it, and I believe that they haven't made any significant changes. We used Lerna because back then that was like the best tool for this, based on the State of JS survey. That is not everybody's favorite tool these days, but I don't really, I'm not in that world anymore, so I don't really know what I would recommend. Yeah, it seems like having a monorepo for everything, including the packages. A lot of people are really excited and happy about that, but I have no experience with that either, so I can't really recommend one way or another.
So we currently don't have a package that wraps the rest of them all up. It's just everybody's on lots of different versions of tiny little things that have tons of peer dependencies of all the other things.
Yeah.
That it's just all individuals. So I'm seeing that as kind of a big problem. So it seemed like your approach was assuming that there is that sort of
yeah, like it just from a developer experience standpoint, that's super annoying to have to manage all those packages, and then like that makes it really easy for you to be on have multiple versions of the same thing installed. And so having that single package, that makes that I'm pretty sure that makes that impossible to have multiple versions of a single package. So if everybody just depends on the one that just wraps all the rest of them, the biggest challenge there is that package version number, if it's doing things semantically correctly, its version will always increment by the major version of any package that has a major version bump. And so if let's say you have 100 packages in there, if every one of them has a single version, major version bump, then that one that wraps all of them is going to be on version 100. So like, yeah, people will be really used to upgrading that package, and they just need to be vigilant about looking at the changelog and identifying if they're impacted by any major version bumps. And hopefully you don't have like major version bumps all the time, but yeah, that version for that package will grow very fast. And nobody, like, you shouldn't be afraid of that, but like just acknowledge that, and people should be aware that like this wraps a lot of things, and make sure you look at the changelog when you upgrade it.
Okay. So I'm trying to read between the lines of what you're saying a little bit, that package that wraps the rest, it sounds like you're considering that just a necessity.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, if you've got a lot of packages, like dozens, then yeah, it kind of is. But like, for example, Reached UI has like a dozen or so packages, and I don't have any problem importing these individually and installing these individually. That's not a big deal. But when you're at a company with a bunch of packages that like everybody uses and everything, you're going to have 30 entries in your package JSON, and each one of those you need to keep up to date and whatever. And then when you are on a regular page and you have a button, and then you've got an accordion, and then you've got a tab, and then you've got just a bunch of different things, you're going to have an import statement for every one of those. I mean, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's not a big deal. But then there's the, like, if you don't keep everything up to date with the latest version of everything, then it's very easy to end up with like for example, in Reach UI, they have a number of underlying packages. Where's their, oh yeah, the Portal is actually an example. They have a number of underlying packages that are used by the main packages. So Portal is one that's used by Dialog and Combo Box and Menu Button. All of those are using Portal. And so if I'm on a different version of each one of those, and not the latest on each one of those, then I can have like Menu Button is on version 1.0 of Portal, and then my Dialog is on version 1.2.0 or whatever. And so then you have multiple versions of this Portal component, which it will technically work probably. Yeah, I'm like pretty confident it will work in most cases, but it's certainly not optimal to send duplicate code and stuff. And so if you don't have the one package that kind of slurps them all up, then people will just have to be diligent about keeping all of those packages to the latest version all the time. Or at least never updating one of them without updating all of them, I guess, is what I should say. And so like having the one package that puts it all together ensures that you can't update one of them without updating all of them.
Okay.
So like, is that a necessity? No, not necessarily, but when the choice is between like people need to be diligent and the computer can do the diligence for them, it's a lot easier to make the computer do it.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
And that's getting a little bit more at yeah, exactly what I'm concerned about, because we have, looking at it's at least like 30 different packages, maybe more. And yeah, like some wizard uses the button and the tooltip, but then some other button, if you upgrade the tooltip, is using like a different version of the tooltip, but you're still using this old version of the wizard that has the button that has the other tooltip. And so now you've got two tooltips in your app. And that's just, I'm trying to think thoroughly about like suggesting that we start wrapping everything into something, I guess is where I'm going with that.
Yeah. I think you're on the right track, and just keep in mind and make sure everybody understands that when you do wrap everything in the one package, that you should make sure that package follows the semantic versioning of the greatest version bump of any one package. And so it will very easily grow it in number very fast, which is fine. It's okay. It's just a number. And all it communicates is one of the packages broke. Look at the changelog to find out which one and if it impacts you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had another question about your upgrade in your Epic React Bookshelf app to React Query 3. But I'll let somebody else go because I need to find a link.
Okay, sure.
If that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Anyone else here in Zoom have a question? Feel free to interrupt me, but I'm going to go ahead and head over to Discord and answer Jens's question. I know I'm saying that wrong. Is it Jens, or is there like a j sound in that? You can correct me later. Jens or Jens? Yeah, I'm so sorry. I want to say these right. Yeah, talking about log out of all devices. So I can go to my site and I can sign out of 5 sessions. I don't even know where those sessions are. My phone, this computer, my old computer. Maybe I don't even know where these sessions are. Maybe I signed in an incognito window or something. But what's cool is I can just click this and all of them are signed out. So the way that works is if I go to can'tseedodds.com, now keep in mind that this website was built while Remix was being built. So some things, while they work and I'm actually still really happy with them, some things are not the way that I would do it if I were to do it over again. But I've got a session. This is for managing the root session. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about this session for your login. So I'm doing a bunch of stuff in here that I could probably change from cookie session storage to my own session storage. Like you can create your own session storage, and then it is still managed with the cookie, or at least the ID is stored in a cookie. But then you can say, hey, when they're trying to get or set values in here, we can persist this to a database. The easy way to do sessions is to just store the user ID directly in the cookie and have it encoded and even potentially encrypted, but not necessarily. And so, but it's signed so that when a user sends their cookie along, you can verify that, hey, I'm the one who created this cookie. And that's what the secret thing is for. Yeah, so when we get that cookie, we say, oh, I made this, and here, let me get the user ID out of it. And now I know that this user is this user ID without having to even check the database or anything. Like I know what this user ID is. Now I can go get their stuff. Now, if their stuff happens to be user data, then yeah, I'm going to go hit the user database for that. But I can hit every, I can go get the rest of their stuff, and actually maybe, let's do Prisma. So in my app, we've got the user themselves. We also have a session, calls, and post reads. That's the data that I've got. In a regular app that doesn't have this feature, you do not need to have a session table at all. So there's no need to have a session in the database for that. You can control your, like, how long the sessions last for and everything that's built into the browser with cookies. So what Jens is wondering about is, like, why do I have this session table? And well, actually, I think Jens knows why, because I have this feature. Because if you want to be able to say, hey, user, you've got 5 sessions or 5 devices logged in, 5 sessions are active, and you can sign out of all of those. And then what I do is I go and just delete the sessions in the database. And but for that feature to work, like, the idea is when I go back on my phone to go use the site, I'm no longer logged in. So this allows me to sign out on other devices. So what that necessitates is when I make a request, I have to check this table and say, hey, is my session still valid? And that's what I do right here, get user from session ID. So this session ID is what I store in the cookie. So this session, there's overload on terms here, but this variable session is coming from the session storage that's being managed inside the cookie. And so then I'm getting the database session ID. And now I've got the token. Now I can get the user from that token. And if, so right here, I'm saying, hey, here's my session. Go to my database, find this session. If there is no session, then they're not currently logged in. If that session has expired, then let's delete it and say it was expired. And I also say that if there's less than 6 months left on the session, then I just extend it for another 6 months or so. So that way, like, people don't have to log in all the time. So I think the sessions expire after a year. And then if you sign in or if you make a request within 6 months of the end of the session, then it's just extended another 6 months, or something like that. There's less than 6 months left. Extend it by 2 weeks, or I can't remember. I don't really care all that much. Something like that. I don't want people to have to sign in if they're visiting my site regularly. So I update the session. And then I return the session user. So I am including the user. So what this is doing is every request that comes in, does hit the database to go get not only the session, but also the user that's associated to the session. That is not always necessary. So I only use this for get user. Yeah, actually, it's just when I'm getting user data. If I'm, yeah, and that's fine. But because of the way that my website is, I do that on every page because I need to know whether to show this newsletter thing down here, or if I can just show like a random image right here. So yeah, like every single page will check the database. Is that optimal? No, it is required for this feature to work. Did I consider that when I implemented that feature? No. Do I care now? Not really. It's outrageously fast. So if I do a full page refresh of everything here, let's even empty the cache. Of course, like that's not the experience of the user anyway. Most of the time, if they are signed in, then they do have a cache. And so that actually is really long. That's not normally 500 milliseconds to get things. Here we go. That's more like it. 327. If you go to Amazon.com and refresh, then yeah, I've got 814 milliseconds, 731. I mean, they're doing more than I am. And they start loading stuff. I don't know what they're doing, all sorts of crazy stuff. But like, if you can get under a second, then you're pretty solid. So I'm not too concerned about this as a performance problem. And then of course, like if I slow down my network, this feature doesn't actually impact how slow my network is, because this is all happening on the server anyway. And so like I have a fixed fixed cost for having to do the server lookup. And it doesn't matter how slow the user's network is for this particular feature, because that's all happening on the server anyway. So yeah, if I were to do some timings, then my server or this aspect of the way that my server works probably is around 50 milliseconds, maybe. I did do some timings early on, and these Postgres requests can take like around 50 milliseconds. And that's totally acceptable for my use case. Okay, anyway, yeah, just answered. Here, actually, are you watching? Yep, nope. So there you go. That is my thoughts on that. Cool. Daniel, did you find the link you were looking for?
Yeah, I did. The code I'm looking at, I had looked at this like a week ago and I made a note to ask you. And now I'm looking at it again. It's not the way I remembered it, but I can still ask the question, okay. I think. Let me find my Discord and I'll post a couple links. So basically you had a section on like fetching while you render. And here's the line that was in my head. Now I'm realizing that's actually just like, it's not in the final file, that's in like the extra credit one. But basically like being able to, it's like with React Query 2, you had the query client, or you had this query cache, and you're able to just kind of use that at the top of your file to set the data, right? Yeah. And so now I watched your implementation of React Query 3, like your migration video for this bookshelf app. And it looked like you weren't doing that anymore. Like you still, am I wrong? Like,
no, I think you're right. No, I think you're right. Okay. Let me see.
I have the link to that too.
Here it is. Yeah, so I've got my
Bootstrap, you found it, right? Yeah.
App data. I am still setting it in the query cache, but that is happening inside of this use effect that only runs when I've mounted. So the difference here is that I can call this Bootstrap app data right now, at the module level as like a side effect. Whereas with the new thing, I am calling it inside of a use effect. And so the difference here is probably like 8 milliseconds maybe, but so it's not much, but it's the time between when the module is executed and when React finishes mounting the app. And yeah, that's probably like, this would be an interesting exercise actually if you want to get this up and running at a console.time right here, and then a console.time end right here inside of the use effect. And then you'd get an idea of like, okay, so what, how long between the time that this module is evaluated and this component is mounted. My guess is it's, you know what? Well, I don't want to install Create React app right now, but my guess is that's going to be like 8 milliseconds or less. So you're probably fine. There are definitely other things that you could do to speed up your app more. But yeah, I mean, you're limited on what you can do when your app is runs completely in the client like this does. When you're and this is why server rendering is necessary for real performance stuff, and that's why Remix is awesome.
Okay, so I'm not 100% sure I followed all of that.
Okay, let me. I can walk you through it again.
Well, can I ask just a clarifying question?
Sure.
So with the older implementation, my understanding was that you're gonna start retrieving that data as soon as any JavaScript starts running, because it was just at the top, right? So like you're gonna start fetching, you're gonna have the data, you're gonna already have the query client, in this case query cache, I guess, and you're gonna set that before any components mount.
Yeah, it probably won't happen before components mount. But you start.
It's not going to wait on them though.
Yeah. You start the process before the components mount. You do have to still wait on it. So that's why we put the promise into run here. So yeah, you just start the process earlier is all.
And in the new version, we're not able to start it as early, or it is still?
Yeah, I mean, there may be a way for React Query to let you start it just as early. Actually, there probably is. Yeah, now that I think about it, I don't know why. Well, yeah, the reason why we can't, we could refactor this code to make it work. Basically, you would not do set query data in here. You would do it inside of the use effect instead. So you just kind of move some code around. But the idea is that we want to start that. That is the line that matters. We need to start that as soon as possible. And again, like I said, you're kind of buying yourself maybe 8 milliseconds, so it may not even be worth it. But like it's not a lot of work. So you'd basically, yeah, what we could do is move this. Yeah, actually, literally just take this line, move it up here, remove the await. So now this is data promise, and then say const data equals await data promise, and boom, you have the exact same.
Okay.
And of course, you'd have to have the token as well. So you do all like this bit of logic right there, move all of that up, and then yeah. It'd be like a little function, but I think you should be able to.
I think I followed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Very helpful.
So right, yeah, thanks. But I would be very interested to measure. And I think that I tried to make that clear in Epic React that like we're not buying ourselves a ton of time. If you really wanted to speed this up, then you'd server render it. But we're just doing client side rendering. So we're going to make the most of it. And what was most important about this was just to demonstrate the difference between rendering when you fetching when you render and rendering as you fetch. That's the primary lesson here.
Yeah, which was what I was trying to do, because I have in a work project, I have like these buttons that have like a favorite heart, and like if it doesn't know yet whether that's favorited, so there's like a loading state for that, and like I had all these little heart buttons show up with like spinners for a second, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had gone back to this bookshelf thing. Oh, he was rendering, fetching while he rendered, and then but then it changed when when you did the React Query 3. So I was just trying to follow all that.
Yeah. So that's what's going on there. Yeah, for your specific problem, it just piqued my interest. What you have to do is you have to fetch before you render if you want to avoid the loading state. And so like what Remix does is because like Remix server renders, but then the user's there and they're navigating around and stuff. And so we've got to dynamically load stuff. And so what Remix does is we say, the user may want to navigate over here, but we're not going to let them until the data is ready. And so then we do a lot of really cool things to make it so that the data is ready really fast so that they don't feel like they're waiting for anything, like prefetching, for example. And so, yeah, that when you're on the client, if you're going to let the user navigate somewhere before data is ready, you have to show loading spinners and stuff. And you can make it a little bit better by, or you can make it a lot better by prefetching. And that was something that I showed in the suspense workshop. And in fact, React suspense, and like all of the suspense stuff has changed. It's still not shipped and whatever. So take all this with that big grain of salt. But in the last example right here, I had, nope, where was it? I feel like it was this one. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was this one. Prefetch. Nope. I literally don't use the word prefetch in this whole thing. I'm pretty sure I did something. Oh no, shoot. Well, basically what I did was, or what I remember doing, but I guess I didn't do this. Oh, you know what? I think when I was working on this, I was going to do that, and then I didn't for some reason. I can't remember why. But anyway, what's going on in this one, for anybody who is unfamiliar, is on this last one here. You can submit one, and then what we're doing with this is we're demonstrating how to control loading states. And so like we intentionally make it really slow so you can see that. But what I was going to demonstrate, I guess, I thought I did, but I was going to demonstrate that once you make this selection, we can actually, as soon as you know all of the information that you need to start making fetch requests for code and data and CSS and everything, then you should start making those requests right away. Whereas what typically happens is you say, hey, I'm going to render this component. Oh, I need some additional stuff. So now I will go get that stuff. And so instead, what we can do is inside of this handle submit, when we say fetch user, and we create a resource out of that for the suspense resource thing, we start fetching the user right in the parent component so that we can trigger the fetch rather than doing it inside of the child that's using it, because we'd have to wait for the code for that child to load before we can start fetching it. So we start fetching it in the parent. I didn't describe that very well, but go through that workshop and it makes a lot more sense. Anyway, I think you know all this, Daniel, but hopefully I just got nerd sniped. That's all. So
no, thanks for going over that.
Yeah,
super helpful.
And this is why I actually still recommend people go through the suspense workshop, even though like everything's changed and it's still not shipped and all that, because I talk about these principles that I think are valuable for just like how you think about data loading. And the real key is, as soon as you know the information that you need to get the stuff, start getting the stuff now. Even if you're not going to need it until other things finish rendering or whatever, start getting it as soon as you can. And this is one of the things that makes Remix so fast, is because Remix is structured in a way that the URL is all we need to know everything that you need. Whereas most everything else needs to know some sort of state of some kind. But Remix, we know what CSS, what JavaScript, and what data you need just by looking at the URL. And so we can start prefetching all of that stuff really early. So anyway, that is a very long answer to your question.
I like your long answers, by the way.
Yeah, you can really get me going, Daniel.
I love it.
Quick jog my memory follow-up to all of that. I think you answered this a while back and the answer was yes. If you were going to redo that authentication in the bookshelf, you would just do straight up React query.
Yeah, I think I would.
Okay. I thought that's what you had said a few weeks ago. I'm looking at some like very legacy authentication code that's like passing dispatches and actions and reducers. And I'm like, think I'm gonna go the React query route.
Yeah, I if I were in your spot, I would probably do that as well.
Yeah, cool. And just like an infinite stale time or whatever, so it never refetches unless you specifically want it to. Cool.
Yep.
Thanks.
Cool. All right. Unless anybody else has something in Discord, I'll come back, or in Zoom, I'll come back here to Discord. Where? Okay, yeah. So Trevor was asking about Zod. I was working on a Zod example. Man, I don't know why, but I cannot be completely satisfied when I try Zod. I like as a library by itself, it's great. I just feel like there's a missing piece somewhere that, yeah, it just isn't, it's not quite what I need it to be. And the fact that they haven't done a release since October and I need some features that they have not yet released, that does not help. But yeah, so good patterns for form validation and remix. I mean, you put your validation logic in the action. If you want to, the biggest challenge is TypeScript, honestly. And so, and that's where Zod is supposed to really help, but it's not quite there. I feel like what the problem is, I feel like I need some additional abstractions on top of that, that are like a remix Zod thing. And I don't want to bring anything like that in to remix. And I know, Trevor, you asked no abstractions, but remix form, validated form, that seems like somebody's attempt at a good abstraction. I haven't really used it much, but it is pretty heavy, so I'm not 100% into it. But yeah, you can take a look at that without bringing in extra form libraries. Then I think that you just put your logic in the action, and then if there's some sort of error or something, then you return the errors, and try to keep it simple, because like by itself it's all really simple. It's only when we try to make an abstraction for that particular piece that things start to get like the trail has not yet been blazed there. I mean, there, like I said, there are people who have built abstractions for it and stuff, and but I just feel like it's so simple. I'm not sure I want an abstraction, so I don't know. I'm still kind of figuring it out myself, Trevor. So good luck with that. Okay, so Alex, here we go. Do you think it's valuable to, oh, hold on a second, really quick. Just noticed my wife sent me a message. Okay. She just left something for me outside my door that I can look at later, she said. Okay, it's valuable to learn Vim shortcuts. Yeah, so I've gone this route. I was a Vimmer for like 2.5 years, I think, and it totally destroyed me. It just messed me up so bad. It took a really long time to stop doing that, or to jump off of Vim. It was really frustrating. I felt like I was always building my own editor. And so that's why I finally gave up and switched. And I started using Atom with Vim mode, and it was neither Vim nor Atom, and so it just didn't quite work. And then I switched to VS Code and VS Code with the Vim mode. And actually, I was a long holdout on VS Code because the Vim mode in VS Code was not as good as it was for Atom, until it finally became as good and made that switch. And it wasn't quite VS Code, it wasn't quite Vim, and it was just, yeah, unpleasant. And so but I didn't want to build my own editor. So I definitely still feel pretty comfortable when I use Vim just in the terminal for editing a file real quick. And so that's kind of nice, but I mean, is it valuable? Yeah, sure. Is it worth your time relative to other things you could be doing? I don't know. Some people will disagree with me, but I think you don't necessarily need that. So anyway, hopefully that is helpful. Mohammed, question regarding choosing TypeScript or Flow and TypeScript for a monorepo with multiple JS packages. We're looking forward to gradually type JS files. Not sure which suit us better. Our goal is to do it without really hurting our developer. So do you have any preference or choice like that? Monorepo has two apps, React and React Native, having somewhat same business logic requirements and multiple common JS files like services used by both. Okay. I would 100% recommend TypeScript. I know that that Flow seems like it's less imposing because you can just use regular JS files and add @flow at the top yeah, and the reason that I chose Flow early on was because it worked with Babel. At the time, TypeScript did not work with Babel. It also worked with ESLint. At the time, TypeScript didn't work with ESLint. And I was like super bought into those tools. And so I was like, I'm not gonna use or abandon all of my tools just so I can have typing when I can have a perfectly good typing solution with Flow. The thing is that Flow is totally lost. TypeScript is totally won. There's no chance in the world that that Flow will come back from this. Flow, people still use Flow, they still like it, whatever, but my goodness, it is no competition on Mindshare. So I would 100% recommend using TypeScript. It will be a little bit more disruptive to your engineers, but nothing would be more disruptive to your engineers than adopting Flow and then later realizing that that you want to switch to TypeScript. That would be disruptive. That'd be super annoying. So yeah, just use TypeScript. You'll be a lot better off. Okay, Nikhil, you can feel free to correct me if I said that wrong. Sorry. On the YouTube, this might be late. Shouldn't those two hooks be wrapped in another to conditionally fetch? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure. Are you? I'm trying to think if you're referring to the earlier discussion about passing a hook as a prop or to the bookshelf app that we're looking at. And I'm not sure how this applies to either one of those. So I'm missing something. Sorry. Feel free to clarify further if you'd like. Okay, Johannes, what I think is not mentioned often enough is SSG. In the SSG versus SSR conversation is simply making the pages you need to be fast and crawlable, e.g. your LP, static in build time via Express. You can still do fancy stuff, animations or fetching data on those pages. In a code base I'm using, the Express part looks like this. So if we're in production, then we've got our static for the client build. And yeah, we have just a static HTML file there. This confuses me a bit. It seems the entire client of the entire app is being served statically. Are there trade-offs to doing that? Okay, hold on a second. Sorry, just dropped my duck that I like fiddle around with and stuff while I'm talking. Yeah, okay, I'm not 100% sure I understand what you're suggesting. Are you saying that yeah, so you're suggesting that you can have kind of both. You can have your Express app do server rendering, and then for anything you need to be super fast, you can just like build it at build time into your static directory, and then serve those through. What you're doing here is you're saying, yeah, okay. So what I'm seeing here is SSG. And client-side rendering, really, because you're serving your index HTML for everything, every request, and then doing client-side routing. This is something that we've done for a really, really long time in the client-side rendering world. And yeah, this is yeah, it seems the entire client of the app is being served statically, or the trade-offs doing that. Yeah, there are enormous trade-offs. Performance is one for sure. And also like developer ergonomics and productivity is another. When you are not running your code on a server, then you have to worry about your private keys and everything. So then you have to have a special endpoint for serving data. And then the data can't be fetched until the app has rendered. So yeah, there are a lot of issues with that. So yeah, I may be missing something that you're trying to say here, but this looks very similar to what people do, except what most people do now is they just drag and drop their static files to a CDN. Of course, they aren't drag and dropping it. They've got automation set up, but that's basically what's going on.
Yeah, can you hear me, Kat?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, there you are. You're in here. Sweet.
Yeah, I just joined. So I might not be getting this code fully, but it seems like it's not just the index.html that's being served, but well, the entire client folder, or at least the build folder of the client.
So what this is doing is when you build your assets, like you make all your JavaScript and CSS bundles and whatnot, those are going to go into this client build folder. And so that when your index.html references those, it's going to be able to serve them from that directory. So it's not serving up the whole app. Like basically it's saying every request that's made to this server is going to send the index.html unless they're trying to get one of our assets, one of our JavaScript, CSS, maybe images that are in the client build folder.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a really common pattern. In fact, I can even show you admin.allianz.com. This is what I did for this site. I made this. Of course, they changed stuff, but this is like years ago. This is what I did for this site. And the reason why I can show you, like, look at that. Yep, that's me. AZ query params. That's me. Yeah, that is localhost. This is my stuff. Oh, that's hilarious. It's been years. Yeah, so this we put a basic index HTML that just has some JavaScript, and they've made a couple of differences and stuff. Yeah, this server config, that was me. I made that. Like over 6 years ago now. Yeah, that's nuts. But yeah, so basically we serve up this one file no matter where you end up on our server, whatever route you're hitting, and then this is responsible for going to get assets and data and all of this stuff. And so what that code is doing is basically what you could do with Nginx config or something like that. It's just basically saying, hey, I've got a bunch of static files, and then I've got a fallback for anything that doesn't match those static files should serve the index, because they're trying to go to a client-side route, which the server knows nothing about, only the client does. And so we'll send them that index HTML, and then the client can take over and handle the client-side routing. And so that's why in here, if we go to, well, they messed it up because I mean, you had to log in anyway, but yeah, and actually we're basically doing the same thing with the Bookshelf app. Mm-hmm. Where this is happening on a CDN, but if I go to bookshelf.lol/list, there actually is no file there. And so actually, I wonder if I've got this configured in my Netlify toml. Let's see. Nope, I don't. There is a redirect, I think. Yeah. Yeah, here it is right there. So this is also happening where anything that that doesn't match an existing asset that I've uploaded, this is the way that Netlify works. If it doesn't match that, then it's going to look at my my redirects, and I'm saying, hey, anything at /star, send the index HTML file and give them a 200. So it wasn't like a redirect. We're just going to send them this resource, yeah, kind of as a proxy, sort of. So does that make sense?
Well, to be honest, I didn't get the last part with Bookshelf, but yeah, I think I'm quite well off with the way I'm doing things. It's just a landing page that is like I'm updating every once in a while. And it has some fancy JavaScript stuff going on with it, like animations and yeah, but it works.
So if it's really just a static thing, then this is fine. You can have it cached and everything. You're just sending a file. The thing that to keep in mind, or the thing that I remind people of is we often think, well, if it's static, then why do I even have the server bother rerunning all the React stuff? Like it's literally creating the exact same HTML no matter who is visiting this page, right? And so like it's just wasteful. We could just do it once and then never have to do it again. And the web has actually had a solution for this for a long time, and that is a shared cache at the CDN level. And so you can put a CDN in front of your app, and that actually is even better than this, because your server is still sending the file. But if you put a CDN in front of it, then the CDN is the one that sends the file. But then you can go a step further and you say, yeah, let's go ahead and let it re-render the whole app and everything on every request. But we put the CDN in front of it so that we tell the CDN, hey, this is the HTML that everybody's going to need. And so just send them this anytime somebody gets this. And so the CDN also doesn't need to bother calling your server. And what's cool about that is if you build your app so that it can server render on any request, and then just cache it for the stuff that doesn't need to change, eventually you're going to have a requirement come to you. Your product team comes and says, hey, we need to have this feature, and it requires dynamic stuff. And if you are server rendering, then you say, oh, okay, well, let's just remove the CDN cache and we'll have it server render. If you're not server rendering and you did the static file, now you have to make a choice. Do I re-architect my app so that I can server render it now? Or do I do something dynamic on the client and show a loading spinner and give the user a worse experience? And so that's why I am super done with static site generation. Sure, you can do all the fun client-side stuff, but that initial page load is just really, really not great for the client, and the whole overarching performance characteristics, like how fast everything loads, is much faster if you can just use the server. And then if you really do just have static stuff, then you can still build it that way and just put a CDN in front of it. So anyway, there's my rant on SSG versus SSR.
All right, thanks.
Cool. Okay, and of course I know that not everybody can like suddenly change the way that they're building their apps to use SSR, but that is the goal for me.
Just before you move on, Ken, I noticed when you're on GitHub, it looked like you used some sort of keyboard shortcut to look up a file by name.
Yeah.
I just double check. What was that shortcut?
So if you go press T, and then you're like Docker file. Yeah, so the T key, and then you can actually do question marks, so shift / and it'll show you all the keyboard shortcuts. One that's really cool is the command palette. So command shift K, and then you can do like all sorts of stuff. And then also command K by itself will let you do like issues and whatever. It's pretty cool.
Ooh,
I like to
fantastic.
think that they stole this idea from me because I made Genie.js. The package is called Genie.js, but the repo is Genie.js. And that's what this is. Of course, I was inspired by Alfred, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I think, nope, where's the website? Demo, here we go. Yeah, sweet. Yeah, cool stuff. So this one you use control space. And then you can do a apostrophe, because I don't know why. I made it so the apostrophe just shows everything, but yeah, you can run the tests in the browser. Man, like these were the days, my friends, like where you ran tests in the browser. Oh, so it was awesome. And it was so fast. You could like look at what the test was. So cool. Oh man, just walking down memory lane. Anyway, yeah, command K, but yeah, T, that's how you do that. Okay, cool. That was fun. I'm gonna take a break and then I'll come back. I'm gonna live stream some more probably. Let's see. I feel like I had something going on. Nope. Yeah, so I don't have anything going on until later this afternoon, like any meetings or anything. And so I'm gonna take a break and then I'll come back and I'm gonna live stream some more here on the YouTube. So feel free. I do not chat on the YouTube though, so you'll want to join the KCD meetup channel if you want to chat or whatever. But yeah, thanks everybody. Let's see. Do I have a cancellation? It is the 25th. Yeah, so no cancellation next week. I should be around. Let me just double check. Oh, you know what? I do have something going on next week. I am speaking at, I can't remember where, but I'm giving a remix talk somewhere, a remote thing. So I may still do it, but I might be a little late. So we'll see. Okay, anyway, that's fun. Thanks, folks. We'll see you all in the future.